are you assessing if current trends or challenges will be present for the long term and therefore need a more thoughtful and permanent solution? And this kind of aligns with another question about how are you anticipating or planning for a second wave?
It's a big one.
Christine, would you like to start with that?
Sure. I think the reality is that, you know, this one really is unprecedented. So it's very hard to, you know, give definitive answers on anything. I think the key for the process, you've got to have a process in place that challenges things on a regular basis and ask why. And as I said earlier, you've just got to dig in and look forward at every point and be prepared for when it changes. It will change, things will evolve. I think that the key is just to set up expectations that things will evolve, that we are in a very fluid, dynamic environment. What's interesting if you do look at trends is if you can get global access to information for different areas of the country, there are, interestingly enough, some different consistencies across industries in different locations. So trying to dig into external data is a way to get ahead of it. I'm a big believer in speaking and connecting relationships outside of your organization to hear what others are thinking, so you're not in a silo bubble around your industry, around your kind of own four walls of people that are stuck in different kind of mindsets and experiences. So I strongly encourage constant outside connections to other people across the globe in your industry, as well as other people across you know, different industries, and what are they seeing and how are they looking at it, and therefore what can you bring back to your organization to leverage that experience. It's hard to take the time to do that, but I think that's going to be super helpful and very important in this time when no one has any direct line of sight to what the actual trends will be.
Thanks, Christine. I think that's something we've seen as well, even in higher education. I know that the Boston and Cambridge area, very dense concentration of universities and colleges, and I know there's been a lot of communication and collaboration among the different colleges to work through this together and try to identify the best steps going forward. And there's no one, you know, chosen or clear path for each organization has to make its own decision ultimately, but sharing that experience, sharing that information, and working together to identify strategies and paths to recovery, I think is really important. Steve, you look like you were about to say something.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. I think this crisis has taught us to be nimble. And I think that's the one thing that we've really got to think about. From a financial standpoint, we've over-indexed on liquidity because we just don't know. And so we're not sort of thinking about liquidity for tomorrow or next week, but we're thinking about liquidity for the medium term. So you'll certainly see us and others in our industry really doing that. The second thing is about cost structure. As an airline, you know, naturally we're heavy on the fixed costs. And so we're really thinking about how do we make more of our fixed costs variable, because again, if we're in a volatile situation for a period of time, we've got to do that. And then on the flip side, sort of more away from the finances, like number one, how do we gainfully employ our people for a longer period of time? And secondly, how do we respond to customer demand? And so we are looking at programs, voluntary programs, where our crew members can either opt out and call it a day and go do something different, or extended leave programs with recall rights. And so what that means is that if we start to see customers coming back and the gradient of the curve comes back more swiftly, we can recall our crew, we can operate our aircraft and everything else. Again, if we're in a situation where it's a more prolonged downturn, or we see a W type recovery with a second wave, then the business can be flexible. So I think, Rob, your point is, and the listener's question is a good one. I think we have to be incredibly nimble in this environment due to the uncertainties that we're facing, and make sure that the company is in a good place to navigate that.
Yeah, not much else to add, except, I mean, my organization tends to be a annual operating budget and, driven organization. And we are now saying we are going to be a quarterly projection and respond, kind of the nimbleness, I think, that the other speakers have emphasized, because we don't know. If we clamp down too hard right now to try and restore finances and there is a recurrence, we won't be able to scale up or surge up again. Yet if it is structural change, we don't want to get caught not reacting soon enough to that. And so it's just a real hard month to month. Do we think which path are we following on the various scenarios that we're outlining?